Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to American VINDICTA. We have on with us today Bob Griswold of Ready Made Resources. We're going to talk about some things going on in the news. We're going to bring up a recent big scare that happened in the Ontario Mills Mall in California. We're going to use this as an example for you guys to understand the true threat and nature of active shooter and how these things can just manifest out of nowhere and how to better respond to them. Not to mention, we'll also bring up the active shooter training that'll be coming up at Ready Made Resources in Tellico Plains, Tennessee in October between 6th, 7th, and 8th. But we're also going to hit on some of the news that's going on with the aliens that Timothy Alvarino and I have apparently went completely viral. We're on 678,000 views now for our video that we did a couple days ago on a whim, which is so crazy. This must really be a God thing for it to get this information out there. So we'll go over that. We'll go over some other news that Bob has, and we'll see how this unfolds. Bob, thanks for being on with us. How you feeling, man? How's it going?
I'm doing well, thank you. Feeling good. And just looking forward to, I always look forward to discussing issues because it gives us a chance, Doug, to make Christ preeminent in all things in our life. Whether we talk about aliens, we always have to bring it back into the preeminence of Christ. Whether we talk about finance, war, whatever it is, terrorism, Christ has the preeminence in it all because he knows he knows the beginning from the end. And when we understand all these events happening and put them in a Christ-centered framework, man, I'll tell you what, first of all, you have peace of mind. Great peace have they which love thy law, and nothing shall offend them. And I'm not running around, just the sky is falling, the sky is falling. I understand it. I understand that how it works. And understanding the nature of something is the key towards, fomenting a plan to go through it. If you don't understand what's going on or why it's going on, you'll never come up with the right plan. It's like I've said before, you could go to a park and see two guys beating each other up, and you can see the raw intelligence of two guys beating each other up. But is it a love triangle that went bad? This guy was sleeping with the other guy's wife. Was it a drug deal that went bad? Was it an episode of road rage? Unless you know the particulars of why they're fighting, and you go try to, solve a love triangle thing by thinking it's a drug deal, you're going to probably get hurt. Not going to work well for you. So properly understanding all these issues we talk about, and through the eyes of Jesus Christ, through the eyes of the Word of God, is the most important thing we have, because all of these things, all of them, from terrorism to aliens, are all done to deceive us in these last days of history. That's what it's there for. I do think, and I think you think, that the Antichrist will be a big unveiling of some type of alien, extra dimensional being come here to help humanity. I think that's a strong possibility. So with that in mind, let's start.
Yeah, let's review this footage. Now, for all of our radio listeners, I'm going to have to take the sound out, primarily because there's a lot of swearing in it, and we don't want to get anyone in trouble with playing anything that was swearing. So this is from Raw News Alert. It says currently there's a situation in Ontario Mills Mall in California where multiple law enforcement and authorities are present. They said the reason is still unknown, but for some reports suggest that it might be due to a possible active shooter. Okay. So what I want, Bob, is for you and I to just break down what we see immediately. You see people are in the cafeteria area. Okay. So that's a big open space. What's not going to be there if there's an active shooter? Well, for one thing, there's not going to be cover. Now, concealment and cover are two different things. Concealment is being able to hide behind something that cannot stop bullets. Cover is being able to hide behind something that can stop bullets. In the cafeteria area, unless you get behind one of the many places that's serving you food, and even then, most likely, they don't have anything in there that's bullet resistant. And don't say the word bulletproof, all right? That can shake up a few people. They think things are bulletproof, bullet resistant, All right. So you would have to be able to scramble yourself pretty quickly to get out of the way. And once again, it seems like the people just got stirred up and they started to panic. And we'll see how this unfolds, Bob.
Now, can I let me mention something? When, before you play it, when you're in a crowd like that and you go to a mall like that, the first thing you need to do if you're in that environment is know where the exits are at.
Yep.
99% of those people probably have no clue where the exits are at. So they're just scrambling to scramble. They're like a fire. I don't know if you ever had fire ants, but if you ever kicked the nest, I've done it a few times, and they all just come swarming out. That's what this reminds me of. And probably nobody has any plan, any understanding, and knowing your exits, how to exfil out of a situation like that before it starts, because once it's figured out, it can quickly jam up and become a death place, because you have a 3-foot opening with 500 people trying to get out of it. It quickly becomes just a stampede. People are stampeded to death, trampled to death. And knowing how to get out of a situation like that is preeminent. So that's what I tell people. Whenever you're in a situation where you go into a mall or any building, make sure you keep track of where the exits are at as you're immobile throughout the building. Make sure you know where those exits are at.
Well, and I'll add to this as well. All right, and I've seen this happen in front of me before. People will get excited or scared and they will panic like a herd of animals. They'll panic and they'll follow the path of least resistance, like the flow of water. All right. So we'd like to teach people: look, listen, feel, smell, use your senses. Don't always follow the herd. But what you see here is also a fight or flight reflex that's happening. All right. And a fight or flight reflex is a psychological thing that happens to you the moment there is an overloading in your senses. If someone runs up you and scares you from around a corner, you either ball up your fist and you hit them, or you jump back and say, "Oh my gosh, you scared me!" Right? So
Yeah.
what we're seeing here is also the what I like to say, the lemming experiment, where the lemmings will just follow each other. They have no idea why they're following each other. They have no idea why they're running. Now,
Yeah.
here's another reason why you want to stop, look, and listen. There have been multiple different occasions with active shooters, Columbine being one of the worst ones, where they had multiple ambushes set up for the people. So you would have one guy, and actually the Mumbai, India attacks, those 9 different terrorist attacks that happened in 3 days, 72 hours worth of firefights. That was probably the worst example that I can give you. What will happen is sometimes you'll have someone who will spook the cattle, and then you'll have someone waiting on the other side, waiting for that funneling. Okay. When you have hundreds of people trying to go through 2 sliding doors or revolving doors, which is, I think, most malls, just 2 like French opening doors, more or less, you're going to have people in a funneling effect. What can you do when people are really tight knit and packed like that, and now they're slow moving? Well, you don't have to aim very much. Shooting the fish in the barrel, so we say. So this is something you need to have. Keeping this idea in your back pocket: stop, look, listen, feel. It doesn't take long to stop and do a 360-degree situational awareness and check to see what in the heck is going on. If everybody is running in this one direction, it may have been best for you to then go in the complete opposite direction at a 90-degree angle, go a complete opposite direction, and go run into one of these food places, because this is what we call the target availability. All right. So active shooters and terrorists are going to take the path of least resistance. They want to hit soft targets, not hard targets. They will attack a mall before they'll attack a police station. Okay. They will hit a place where there's a large number of people, because for whatever the reason for their ideological reason for the attack is, they want to harvest as much meat as possible. I know that sounds bad, but that's the way these people think. They are always riding upon the I got to kill more people than the last active shooter. It's a weird thing that you'll see. And then you have the even weirder thing, which is the copycat killers. But we'll skip that for now. So let's
Hey,
Bob, you got
Doug?
anything to add?
Yeah, I do. If you read Lieutenant Colonel Grossman's book on killing, you have basically two functioning brains. There's the normal brain people go by, and that's your everyday brain where you have higher thinking functions involved. So you can make discriminating choices because you can discriminate between good, bad, and all those things that would be associated with that. But when something like this happens, he calls it caveman brain. And you look at those people right there. I don't think there's much higher reasoning and function going on in their brains. They've reverted immediately to caveman brain, and that means there's no thinking in that herd at all. It's panic, running, no plan to get away, nothing, and so this is the reason why you keep your head on a swivel. This is the reason why you know your exfil points. This is the reason why you do. So when something like this happens, look at the looks on their faces. They're not thinking. I mean, granted, they got out of the building, but there's no plan.
And right there, you saw an old man shove a mom over in front of what appeared to be a walker for the child, I believe. What do you call that? The stroller.
Yeah.
I have 5 kids. How do I not know this word?
Hmm.
Yeah, it is every man for himself.
Caveman brain. That's what caveman brain does. It goes down into just basic survival instinct.
So you see
there's no higher functions of your brain working at that point.
You see this gentleman right here in the orange shirt. He'll be coming up soon. Right there.
Yes.
All right. What he did was, as he was running, picked up a child and moved the child out of the way. Okay. I don't know if that was his child or someone else's, but you can be, here's this old guy right here who knocks over the lady with the stroller. You can be sure that children, if they are not tight and near you, will get trampled. You'll lose them. They'll be caught in the herd. You may have someone panic and say, oh, there's a child, and pick your child up and run away with them. Okay. And there we go. Now for parents and the need for training with your children. I occasionally do it, and I'll admit I don't do it enough. None of us train enough. Okay. But I do have forms of training that me and my wife do consistently try to impart on the children, especially when we're out. You stay near us. You always stay within hands grip, or I'm always touching one of my kids. I'm always getting a head count of my kids. I'm always turning in a 360 degrees, looking for everything and anyone. Okay. My wife is the one who's getting the groceries. The only thing I do is pick out the meat. So my job as the man is to look for threats. Okay. It doesn't mean Godzilla walking down the aisle. It means any type of threat, any type of suspicious person, people that could be following us. All right. You don't know if you're not looking. So, parents, this is another big thing. And let's speak upon the elderly as well. If you are an elderly person and you have hard trouble moving fast, let's say that. If you had a hard time moving fast, what is your plan for when you get caught in an active shooter? Same for the parents, same for the single men, same for the single women. All right. When I used to teach this, when I was in the Department of Homeland Security, and I would teach active shooter trainings to the federal employees, the thing that used to piss me off the most, Bob, is how people, I'll let this just play so people can watch it. Well, people would fall asleep at my training, which you do not fall asleep at my training, and I will embarrass you so bad if you fall asleep in my training. But I always ask people, do you have a plan for when this happens? Most people say, oh, yeah, I know what I'll do, but no one knows what they'll do until they get into it. Nobody has a plan until they get that first hit. Isn't that what Mike Tyson said? So yes. What you got to do is you got to train now, and you can train with your family. All right. For any of you who've come out to the multiple active shooter courses that we put on, please put in the comments below what you thought about that course. By the way, for people who haven't been there and who would like to come, you can read the comment section. But we work on heavily going through a doorway with a gun and watching your threats and watching your corners. Okay. That's where bad people hide. And that's where ambushes start, is at that corner, that path that you cannot see before you break the corner. So going in between the aisles of stores. Okay. I want you to treat every single aisle as if you're going through the threshold of a door, and that's your danger corner. It's the same thing. You're going to blade yourself, you're going to expose yourself, look around the corner, and it's a free rep. People will think you're weird, but I do it sometimes. But it's a free rep, free training, and around people as well. But you need to start thinking more hyper aggressively in terms of security while you're out. Bob, it's getting so dangerous now. And it's only going to get more dangerous when the election cycle starts up. You and I both well know how dangerous it will be then, especially with
Well,
Antifa and all the others. Go ahead, Bob.
if Donald Trump is elected, um, you're going to have immediate reaction.
Oh, Lord. Yeah.
Yeah, if he's elected president, which I'm, if he's the front runner, I want him to see, I want to see him get elected, because I don't think we did, Joe Biden. I don't want to see him in there for Kamala Harris. But you're going to immediately have all these leftists and anarchists and communists hit the streets, and they'll start burning everything down. They will attack any churches, any place where they perceive that there's any type of Trump supporter. And they think that churches are high, percentage of them are Trump supporters. So you're going to see I think, an immediate reaction of anarchy in this country, should Trump get elected. But that's just one of the signal points, or the flash points, that we have right now. We have so many of them, whether it's the economy, whether it's racial issues. There's so many flashpoints. Just in South Africa, they had that rally where I think it was about 90,000 Africans got together, Black Africans got together, and they talked about, killing every white person in their country. Well, immediately after that, white people started being tortured and killed by those very people. So we see every element that has negative connotations to it right now being employed by the left to create those divisions, whether it's racial, financial, religious, whatever it is. And so everybody's a target of some other group. And that's what the anarchists want right now. So, blacks are targets of whites, whites are target of blacks, the rich are target to the poor. We just see religious, Muslim, Christian, Catholic, all of it. FBI, targeting Catholics to saying they're terrorists, where multiple field offices had that memo where they were, saying this group of Catholic people were terrorists. So we just see this division breaking down more and more, and it's not a friendly division. It's not like it used to be, where you had good competition between maybe Republicans and Democrats or issues. Now it is, the polls are so so polarized that you have violence being employed. I watched a video today, I actually posted it, just dozens of times that the Democratic Party has got on TV and advocated, I want to choke that person to death. I want to kick them. We need to be in the streets burning things down. I mean, they're advocating this.
Yep.
And when you have that type of, rhetoric going on, you're going to see more and more of it happen. When you have, drugs pouring across our country, and you have a large percentage of the American people that are absolutely drugged out of their gourd, you're going to have, people going psychotic and doing things that they normally wouldn't do. And then you have people that have been hyper, sensitized to their issue. So if you deny climate change, you deserve death. If you deny their pet cause, you deserve death. And this is America today. And it's not getting any better. It just keeps getting worse every single day. And if you're not ready for that type of activity, there's a much higher chance that you're going to be caught up in it and probably be one of the victim from somewhere, from being injured to somewhere, being dead. So, you can make the choice of learning what to do in that situation, because it's not just the mall. It's what happens if you're at church and it happens. What happens if you're wherever and it happens?
I have a good example here.
The movie theater.
Here's a good example that happened July 30th in Muncie, Indiana. You had a large gathering of people. And for anyone who wants to be like really up to date, Bob, you know this. I've shared this site with you before. Gunviolencearchive.org is the best system out there for keeping up with mass shootings, active shooters, break-ins, officer involved shooting. Gunviolencearchive.org. And I implore anyone in the church to, especially if you're a member of a church security team, to visit gunviolencearchive.org, pull up the stats. You can pull up the stats in your area for your state. You can pull up the stats nationwide, and you can actually give a very good briefing on what's going on active shooter wise, let's say criminal wise, around the country, and bring people up to speed, because Bob, people are not up to speed in any of this. Listen to this. All right, this happened near South Hackley Street. Large gathering at event venue. Up to 1,000 people were at this venue. 18 shot, including 2 juveniles. 1 was hit by a car, probably because of the mass panicking. And then likely multiple shooters, Glock-style handguns were involved. The 2 guns involved were a AR-15, AK-47 variant, and then a handgun. So was this a gang violence? Was this a target of opportunity upon a soft target, a group of people, a gathering of people? So listen to this. The victims were in the ranges of 30, 14, 17, 18, 18 or older, 18 or older, 18 or older. So like, this is out in a place where grown-ups are just out gathering. Okay. Let me see. The subject, which is the acquaintance of the suspect, John Lamar Vance, age 36, injured and arrested afterwards. So, I mean, like, this is one of the things that these shooting sprees are going on. And you know where they're going on the most prevalent at? You'll be surprised. The most prevalent of these shootings are happening in Democratic strongholds. Who would
Yeah,
have
really.
ever thought that?
Yeah. Well, again, if you take gun violence, gang-related gun violence out of the equation, America has a very low rate of gun violence. It's just that when you throw all that gang violence in there, gang shootings and so forth, our gun-related violence skyrockets. And we see it every weekend in Chicago, Detroit, wherever. It's just, the body count adds up and adds up.
It's
But,
horrible.
as our economy fails more and more, and, anybody who believes that that the economy is good. In fact, I actually watched, Jean Vier, I forgot her last name, saying that, we inherited a horrible economy when Joe Biden got into office. Yeah, I mean, they don't even try to hide their lies anymore, and so, but as the economy fails, you're going to have more and more people get desperate, and what you see going on in the hood, it is migrating outward, and this is why you see more and more of these shootings and people being victimized, because it's moving outward where they have more victims that have maybe some capital cash or whatever.
Yep.
And this is why you need to get ready for it. We used to be the greatest nation on earth. Now we're not in so many areas. I mean, you look at the demographic or the category of like education or finance, whatever, we have sunk down low, and violence is exploding in our cities. And not only that, but it's also exploding in rural America.
Well, the love of many is wax cold, Bob. And
Yes,
is this not biblical? The
it's totally
violence,
biblical.
the master told of the violence that was going to be coming. And I'll tell you that it's still, that element of violence that Jesus talked about is still not here yet. The days of
You
Noah,
know,
it's not here
yeah,
yet.
that was the one specific reason in the book of Genesis that God destroyed the antediluvian world. Was it says the earth was filled with violence. Violence is the one specific issue that he said. Now we all know there were a lot of other things going on. And when it says violence, it not only means, just physical violence between people, it means violence against the laws of God, violence against the statutes of God, violence
That's
against
right.
marriage,
That's
violence
right.
against children. So there was violence going on everywhere. And if you look today, there's violence against marriage. There's violence against children.
Never
There's
have I
violence.
never have I seen the reprobate culture come out and be defended the way they are. To the extent that if you are a Christian who is straight, you believe in the laws of God, the rules of marriage by the Ten Commandments by God, then you are considered to be an outcast. You're considered to be a domestic violent extremist. I mean, that's not some idiot down the street saying that. That is Joe Biden's government saying that. I mean, you and I talked about this yesterday. We compare America to Babylon. Uh, I have friends of mine say, "Oh, well, we're not Babylon, but we are the spirit of Babylon." Let me tell you something for all you who say that. Um, Nebuchadnezzar would blush at the violence that is in the land of America. He would be so shocked that I bet even he would say, "Man, I wouldn't go that far." I
You
mean,
know,
we have blown up the idea of how dangerous the world could get. Go ahead, Bob.
yeah, Caligula would love to be alive in America today, and we know how much of a degenerate he is. He'd see in America today, and he'd go, "Oh my gosh, I can live out my most bizarre fantasies." 50 years ago, when I was a teenager, if you had a group of adults marching down city center saying, "We're here for your children," knowing that it was homosexual activity for your children, I'm not condoning it, but I doubt if those people would have left that city center with their own ability to walk. And now that type of thing, we're here for your children. It's celebrated. People celebrate that they're
Dude,
here.
remember the
They're going to
song?
act. Yeah,
They
yeah,
they sang a song
a
of all
song. Yeah,
all these men, and some of them were known child pedophiles who had been arrested for pedophilia, and they were invited to sing a song about how we're coming for your children. Oh, well,
so
nah,
it
man, go
just
ahead.
shows you how. Well, it just shows you how America has fallen. Our the moral state of America today is in the toilet. Well, it's actually not in the toilet. It's already been flushed and it's somewhere at the bottom of the septic tank. Um, this is what we're facing. And when you have people like that who can sing that song are not good, decent people. They're evil people, and that evil, you cannot compartmentalize that evil in your life. If you look at an evil person, that evil is not segregated to one section of their life. It taints everything that they do. So you have to understand that's what's walking around in America. One in every 5 Americans that you walk by, say when you're at the mall or you're walking down the street or whatever, is chemically altered. I mean, their brain is not working as a normal brain. That they're on some type of drug, Adderall, benzodiazepine, opiates, alcohol, marijuana, you name it. They're on that. So you have 1/5 of all people in America that are not in a normal framework of thinking. So this is what we're facing, and people had better get used to that fact, because when it happens to you, you'll think, how did this happen? Never thought it would happen to me, and that's what you hear all the time. I've heard many testimonies of people who've been in that situation. I never thought it would happen here. I never thought it would happen to me, and then it does. Switching gears a little bit. I'm sure last week the people living in Maui never thought that they could be a possible victim of, arson. The Discern report is calling it climate terrorist, are doing this. That's what they're alleging, that's a possibility of what they're doing. And, we just see suspicious fire after suspicious fire all over the country. Fertilizer factories burning down, meat processing factories burning down, chicken processing factories burning down, all kinds of things that are making food burning down. And then you see something like this fire. Well, I'm not saying it was, but you have to think along those patterns anymore, because that's what they are doing. They're burning stuff down they disagree with people eating meat, so they burn stuff down. They think there's too many people on the planet, so they burn the food factories down. And in Canada, I'm not, it's highly suspicious, those fires that went on in Canada, of how it happened. I know they have a normal set of fires that happen every year in Canada, but that was like 10 times the level of normal fire rate that was going on in Canada. So, you have something like this happen in Maui. I mean, it's not only just that you had a big fire, it's that nobody has houses anymore. Nobody has a job anymore.
Yeah,
The
and
power lines are burnt down. The communication towers are burnt down.
That's a scary forethought, and I'll say why, because America's going through one of the worst droughts it's ever been, especially here in Texas. I think this is recorded as like the worst drought Texas has ever been in. And you have groups like ELF, the Environmental Liberation Front, and ALF, the Animal Liberation Front, that are two known extremists. The groups, those are literal domestic terrorist groups that the FBI has monitored for years, arrested many of them for years because of the environmental terrorism that they do. I remember when we were in training, we had to part of our job was to figure out how to harden federal facilities and stuff like that, trying to think like a terrorist so that we can outsmart them and outmaneuver them. So part of what we were broken up into teams, and my team was set to hit this one huge airstrip. And I said, well, honestly, the easiest thing to do is, because it's summer and there's so much dead foliage in the ground, and I've already walked all the trails. They're not going through there. They're not back burning. They're not clearing anything. So if I really want to shut down the airstrip, I'm just going to set the entire wood line on fire, and it costs me a Bic lighter. I mean, that's the thing with environmental terrorism. Yeah, it doesn't cost much. It's easy to cover your tracks. So everyone remembers the horrific fires that happened in California back in like what, 2017, 2018, I think.
Same with Tennessee, it was arson.
Yep. Northwest, what hit Washington State, Idaho, and then Montana, that was all declared to be environmental terrorism. But you can't stop people from driving and going out to the middle of the national park and starting a fire and driving off. But that's how easy it is. And the thing is, what people fail to consider, is that our power lines that connect the West Coast to the East Coast run through these major national forests and wilderness. And all you got to do, man, is go and find it. Even if there is a pipeline cleared for it, just go out there and start the fires. Eventually you'll mess up something, and that's how easy it is. And that's what we're dealing with. And this is not right-wing extremism doing this. It's never been documented, as far as I remember, that right-wing extremism would go out and commit environmental terrorism. Not to say that people wouldn't. People are freaking crazy. But that is primarily a leftist tool for terrorism.
Absolutely. Same thing with those power transformers that were burning up. That is, something they perceive as not carbon neutral, burning coal, burning oil. And so they attack those. We never really got to the bottom of it and found out who was doing it. But again, it just shows you how vulnerable the infrastructure of the United States really is. We just mentioned before the program, if you have people in New York rioting, going crazy over a PlayStation, imagine what they're going to do when it's food or water and they don't have what they need. What are the people in Hawaii going to do right now? I mean, hundreds and hundreds of homes have burnt down. The infrastructure is burnt down. This is a major catastrophe. So what are they going to do? I'm sure you're going to see looting and other things that happen. And when people really figure out it's a major crisis and it's in a city, you're going to have what goes on will be unspeakable.
And that, and you know, I lived in Hawaii for 4 years when I was stationed with the Marine Corps in Kaneohe Bay. Hawaii is a primarily leftist state. Every
And
single
very
island,
leftist.
very leftist. They openly embrace and support debauchery. And so it'll be interesting to see what the state's response on how to help their civilians are. Because Hawaii has, I think, the biggest homeless population per capita out of any state. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Except for
that's,
Puerto Rico, except for Puerto Rico. But
I mean,
it is fun to watch New York squirm right now.
that riot that was caused by a YouTube influencer.
Yeah.
Uh,
But I'm not only talking about that, but it's like we're a sanctuary city. We're a
oh, yeah.
sanctuary city. And now even Lady Gaga got on TV and said, they're catcalling girls. They're doing this, they're doing that.
Well,
Where's
yeah.
the welcome? Yeah, where's the welcome mat? It's okay when you throw the welcome mat down in Florida.
You
It's
wanted to
okay when
you want they wanted people to take them into their homes, and now even New Hampshire is talking about having declaring a state of emergency because of the illegal migration. I thought that's what you guys wanted. I
yes.
thought you
And
wanted all the military age males from all the places around the world.
and Canada's actually promoting that if you have an extra bedroom in your home, you need to open up your home and let somebody who doesn't have a place come and stay in your home, like sight unseen. No, there's no vetting. You just
Yep, just let Jeffrey Dahmer into your house.
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
just let you have children. Let the child molester in your house. Um, you're going to eventually see that when we have a major crisis where a major portion of housing is destroyed. The government can't respond to it, and they're going to make those kind of suggestions.
Well, remember they
Eventually.
did this. They did this, Bob, in Germany during Obama's time frame,
Yes.
and Angela Merkel was actually kicking elderly people out of their homes that they had like built themselves, kicked people out of their homes and moved them to apartments in big cities and let the migrants take over. One was a farm. I'll never forget because I remember that the backlash that happened because this one community, and it's like a little bitty community, like where me and my wife are from, like 400 or 500 people live there. And they forced like 2 or 3 thousand migrants in there, were kicking people out of their homes or forcing them to take a dozen men into their homes. So what was the backlash? You started having protesting and marching done by men and women who were raising swastikas, saying that we've had enough. We're not going to take this anymore. Walking down the streets with baseball bats and rifles and machetes and axes. And once again, you drove people so crazy, you polarized them so much that they thought, and this is me speculating, that the only way to scare these people out of their area was to resurrect Nazism. Like this is the insanity of where you can push people. You push people into a corner, and they do one of two things, Bob. They capitulate or they fight back until they die.
Well, that's how Hitler came to power because the Allied powers so economically deprived Germany post-war, World War
The
I,
Treaty of
that
Versailles.
people felt they had no option but to take on someone like Adolf Hitler, who promised, we're gonna make it right. We're gonna take care of these undesirables.
It was
And
it was
who also used that word undesirables or detestables or
uh
deplorables?
I think Hillary Hinton was her name.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you know, after the Treaty of Versailles, little back knowledge for you guys. It's the historians estimate that there was between 30 and 50,000 men, all between the ages of 18 and 50, who did not have a job, that were just hanging out. And I mean, gangs of hundreds to thousands perusing the streets in Berlin, and it became a problem. And so Adolf Hitler, seeing the economic downturn, saw the depression, saw the, what's a good word, Bob? Saw the desire to make something out of people, out of themselves. Um, They
People
didn't
were
they didn't let a
people
good
thought they'd
crisis go to
lost hope.
waste. Yeah, they
The
lost
bottom
hope.
line is they lost hope. And so when somebody came along and offered them hope, or they perceived a way out of it, they
They took
jumped.
it. They
Yeah,
took it.
and when they jumped that way, 50 million people died in World War II. So I mean, that's what's happening. And when you do things like that, you create civil conflict or you create war. And I truly believe the Democratic Party in this country wants to create that kind of war. Um,
Manufactured, right, Bob?
yeah,
Absolutely
yeah, well,
manufactured.
manufactured. That's why they pit everybody against each other. And I don't think we're very far from that line being crossed to where you see major outbreaks between rich or poor, black or white. You know,
Bob,
we're there.
before we hit the alien stuff, because I know you and I really want to have fun talking about that, I wanted to read two things for people, and I want to get your thoughts on this. For one thing, here's an update from Department of Homeland Security for the National Terrorism Advisory System. There is no update for the last, I think, almost 5 months. So it says the National Terrorism Advisory System is designed to communicate information about terrorist threats by providing timely, detailed information to the American public. Now, that being said, they go on to say that the United States remains in a heightened threat environment. Lone offenders and small groups motivated by a range of ideological beliefs and personal grievances continue to pose a persistent and lethal threat to the homeland. Both domestic violent extremists and those associated with foreign terrorist organizations continue to attempt to motivate supporters to conduct attacks in the homeland, including through violent extremist messaging and online calls for violence. In the coming months, factors that could mobilize individuals to commit violence include their perceptions of the 2024 general election cycle and legislative or judicial decisions pertaining to socio-political issues. Socio-political issues. When you hear that, you need to start thinking pedophilia because that's what's coming.
Well, you have 81 million Americans right now realizing that there is no political solution
Nope.
because 81 million people voted for Donald Trump, and they realize now there's not a political solution. We can't vote for the man we want because they're going to so encumber him with legal problems and so forth and so on that they're going to put their man. They'll have their neocon Republican up there. That the Democrat and the neocon play on the same team. That you have 81 million people start to dawn on them that there's no way out of this, but through legal or just means.
And they're going
And
to find violence.
it's predictable. They watch these jokers on TV. The Department of the Attorney General, the Mayorka, all and they just realize that nothing is going to happen. The border is going to be left open. People are coming and taking the jobs, drugs, politicians making money, pedophilia, and they realize nothing of legal means can stop these people.
Well,
and so that's where it's at. And it's just going to get worse. So Americans need to really start thinking about if and when this happens. Like I said, if Donald Trump were to get back in, I think all hell would break loose as soon as it
absolutely.
was announced he was president or became president.
This is what
Can you imagine the inauguration? What it'd be like? I mean, no Democrats would show up. The day it would happen, you'd have people burning stuff down in Washington, D.C.
That's when the actual coup would happen. Listen to this. This is what the NTOSINS was saying, that the likely targets of potential violence include U.S. critical infrastructure, faith-based institutions, individuals or events associated with the LGBTQIA plus pedophilia and amphibian crowd, schools, racial and ethnic minorities are considered to be a target, and government facilities and personnel, including law enforcement. So they like to say this word domestic violent extremists quite a bit, but I have come up with a new acronym: PETS. PETS. I want you to consider, because I think the pets are the real problem that we have. It's not MAGA country. It's not an old lady walking around in the Capitol waving an American flag, telling people to stop acting like idiots. It's the pets. It's the politically bought off, the politically what I have right down. The politically exploited traitors, pets, and they typically have a D or an R in front of their name. Those are the ones who are trying to get us into nuclear war with Russia. Those are the ones who want to take your guns away. Those are the ones who want to give every type of poison to your children through the medical system. They want to destroy the school system. They promote racism. They promote radicalism. Hell, they are the racist radicals. They are the
Absolutely.
pupils of Saul Alinsky. They are the pets that we need to deal with
The,
eventually.
the very people who fought for years to say there was racism behind every bush now are practicing racism. They're having exclusionary classes for African Americans. They're doing this, and it's not done because they favor African Americans. It's done because they know it's horribly divisive, and that's the end goal. And the end goal of that being divisive is violence. That's where they want to take this. It's historic. It's predictable. You've seen it happen through societies. Hitler demonized the Jews, and the violence was predictable. Today, Christians are being demonized. The violence towards Christians will be predictable. It is predictable.
Did you see what happened in Idaho? I want to say this real quick, though. I said we need to deal with these pets, the politically exploited tyrants, the politically exploited traitors. We need to deal with them in the way that I believe Jesus wanted us to deal with them, not the way your flesh wants to deal with them. Now, I'm going to be breaking the mold when I say this, but for all my brothers and sisters out there who are raw militia, hang everybody, listen, in all things that you do, are you glorifying God?
Absolutely.
And at this point, we should turn this country over to God. Have you ever had somebody that you've prayed for and you prayed for and you prayed for, and they just refuse to act straight? You turn them over to God. Okay. Happened to me. It can happen.
The Bible says to do that. The Bible says if you have an immoral person who refuses to repent in the church, Paul, there was a man sleeping with his stepmother, and Paul said, turn him over to Satan. It's not that we abandon him, but you take away his church membership and any privilege the church extends to him, and you count him as an unbeliever. So it's not being mean; it's being biblical with unrepentant people, and that's the way I would put people who promote violence. We need to go kill them all. We need to hang people. We need to do this. Tell me when that has worked.
No,
it doesn't work.
There's a reason, Bob. I'll let you speak on this. There's a reason why the first thing we talk about when you come out to our training event and at Ready Made Resources, it's the first basis that we line out. You will not be talking about militia activity. You're not going to be talking about, nefarious political activity. You're not going to be talking about going out and killing people or killing political members, because that, for one thing, is not what Christ wants us to be centered on. Two, that is how you self-destruct yourself and these organizations that are out there to help you become a better, more prepared society and family. Go ahead, Bob.
We allow people to have free speech and we allow people to talk about politics, but it's very, very clear. Once you cross that violence line, you're warned when you first get there. The second warning, you leave there. So if you're out there saying, we need to shoot somebody or hang somebody or burn something down,
we have to go ahead, Bob.
You're immediately, there's no second chances, because we want to protect everyone there from being painted with that brush.
That's right.
You do that and you're immediately escorted off the property. Immediately. You cannot ever come back here, and do not come back or I'll call the sheriff on you for trespassing. We do not want anybody there because, again, we train to protect. We train to be good members of our community. We don't train to become vigilantes. That's not what we're training for. And anybody who wants to do that, come out and I'm going to be God's vigilante. Well, you're going to go be God's vigilante somewhere else, not here.
So you know why?
Not
because
here.
Statistically, it's being shown that people with that mindset are either a Fed, B, an informant for a Fed, and they're there to infiltrate. And it's always funny because we always assume with our training and our gatherings, there's at least one or two guys. There's always, we always have to assume there's at least one or two guys who's there for nefarious reasons. And so, as professionals, we ask you to act professionally. Keep your conversation holy. We are Christians first, we're Americans second. Keep your conversation holy. Let's protect one another. We're here for fellowship. We're here to lift each other up. And we're also here to train to make sure you always go home and you always are able to protect yourself, your family, your loved ones.
Yeah, Doug, you say it best. We want to train assets. We don't want liabilities. We want to train men and women who go to their communities and become an asset in that community, not a liability. And again, I being my property, I allow a free range of free speech. If there's somebody came and they wanted to say, I believe in Joe Biden, I like Joe Biden, I'm gonna welcome that free speech, and I'd welcome a rebuttal to it. But it can't turn violent. That's the only thing. I'm not going to try to restrict somebody's free speech, in that manner. But the rule we have is that you cannot cry fire in a movie theater. And so once that line is crossed, then see you later, buddy. You're gone.
It's about discipline. If we don't have discipline, then there's nothing that separates us from the animals.
Yeah.
And
separates us from being a fed.
Yeah. And in these times, I want to talk to you about the animals that are out there. Here, I'm gonna share a screen with you. For many of you who know this, I spent a few years in Portland, Oregon, doing a few things against a few people out there. This is recently happening, and it's very infuriating, but I'm not surprised. I've reached out to Andy No, man, at least 8 or 10 times now to try and get an interview with him, to try and get even a conversation with him. One thing, to let him know that I appreciate his work. I have his book. We may not agree on everything, but we can agree that the violence that is shown by Antifa is unsat, and the response to Antifa is unsat, as an unsatisfactory for what we the people demand. Now, this is what we're reading from the Post Millennial. Breaking: Portland jury finds Antifa militants not liable in Andy No attack. Defense attorney declares, I am Antifa. Now, I had to grind my teeth pretty hard as I was reading this, Bob. But the defendant's attorney, okay, you see this human bacon right here, this guy who was burnt to recognition. I've arrested this guy before. I have arrested him before. Okay. In 2018, I arrested him. The defendant's attorneys told the jurors, and nowhere else in America would you ever expect to see this and nothing be done about it. But the defendant's attorneys, the Antifa defendant's attorneys, turned to the jurors and said, I am Antifa, and we will remember each one of your faces. Looking at the jurors. That's juror intimidation. That's tampering. That's illegal. Nothing was done about it. This guy and this lady, this is the video of what happened to oh crap. This is the video of what happened to Andy No. He was hit multiple times in the head, punched, kicked. They were spraying him with mace. You can see the multiple different times they punch him in the face. These are the crowds that I have dealt with for years. Inside some of this, the milkshakes that were tossed at him were caustic chemicals. He had second-degree burns on his hands, I believe on his face and his arms. And these guys dressed in all black, all right, this is called Black Bloc. This is what's running your Democratic cities in the Northwest. And everybody's involved. Everybody's involved. Now, this is a journalist. He's out there covering things, and he has actual legal protection for being a journalist. And the system failed him. The system failed him. And, not only did the system fail him, law enforcement has failed these people. The city council has failed these people. The state has failed these people. The federal government has failed these people. Hell, the people failed the people. Because, Bob, I'm going to look right into the camera and I'm going to ask you a question. If Antifa came walking down your street in Tellico Plains, the sheriff's department didn't respond, the federal government didn't respond, and when people were locked up, they were immediately released. There was no felony charges. How long would it take for you and your neighbors to eventually say, well, if you're not going to do anything about it, we'll do something about it? How long is that eventually going to take?
I think the people of Tellico Plains would go Korean real quick, if you know what I'm referring to.
Roof
The LA
Korean.
riots.
Yep, the roof Koreans, man.
Yeah, the Koreans, they did not have their businesses looted and people abused. They didn't have their women violated. And so I think that would happen pretty quickly. But, our sheriff's department, I think, is a fairly good sheriff's department, and they would not allow that to happen. You know, they would in no way seek to squash somebody's ability to free speech. But once it turns to that violence thing, it wouldn't be allowed. And the same thing with me. Again, I do believe that the teachings of Jesus, blessed are the peacemakers, for they should be called the sons of God. I'd rather make peace with somebody if it's possible. But once they start doing that, where you're being assaulted with chemicals and so forth, you have the right of self-defense. I think if he had taken out a gun and shot those people who were assaulting him, he'd have been totally justified. If I'd been on a jury, I would have said, yes, he was totally justified in doing it, because you don't know what's in that cup that they're throwing at you. And, or you don't, when they're kicking you, how many times do you have to get hit in the head before you have a traumatic brain injury where you never recover from it?
Well, and that mob violence is what they get away with. And look, the police chief, the police commissioner, yeah, Ted Wheeler, who was also the mayor. I think he's still the mayor. He encouraged it. He allowed it. And the whole time I'm thinking, where is the sheriff's department and the police department to arrest this piece of crap? Yeah. Look, do you find it strange? I find this strange. Do you find it strange that apparently within the chain of command of local law enforcement is the city council and the mayor? Did you know that?
Yeah. I don't, in Portland or in Seattle, I don't find anything strange if it leans towards Marxism, communism, anarchy. I don't find any of it strange, because that city is basically lost. It's infiltrated and it's lost. I mean, I don't know if you could redeem it, because the levers of power are all controlled by those people. So even in the voting system, we know you're not going to get a fair vote. It's going to be a cheating vote, so that they'll remain in power pretty much forever. The only way that would ever change is to have a complete uprising, but I don't see that in American future, because again, where is the outrage? I was talking to Steve Quayle today, and I said, most Americans get far more upset over a bad call on a football game than they do about pedophilia being rampant in the United States. I see people scream and holler at the TV set, get all mad, write articles about it when somebody, is, inbounds or out of bounds, whatever, and it wasn't. Then when you have, a massive pedophile ring and these people get off with just a slap, America doesn't get upset about it. So when you have those kind of values, don't expect change to happen. And that's why I say, good Americans had better get ready, get prepared, because this thing is going downhill rapidly. I'm not a prophet, but I would say from his history and the Bible, I think that we've reached Romans, the third stage of abandonment mentioned in chapter 1, where God has given us over. This isn't just normal, cold hearts, denying our conscience and so forth. God has given us over to a reprobate mind, or you can say God has given us over to an insane mind. And I think that's where America's at today. We've been given over to an insane mind. And I'm just saying, you better get ready, because what you're seeing on the TV screen is going to happen more and more as once they reach the tipping point with food or water. and you have major cities without enough food, you're going to see violence like you can't even imagine. These people will revert to cannibalism very, very quickly. And nobody will be safe. Nobody will be safe. And we're seeing that happen. We're seeing it play out. It always gets me when people say, when the crap hits the fan in America, when the rule of law breaks down. Well, ding, ding, ding. It has. The rule of law has broken down in the United States. The crap has hit the fan in the United States. Who would have ever thought you would see the things going on right now and being celebrated? We have a president who absolutely has hardcore convictable evidence. It's as low-hanging fruit as a district attorney would ever get for a conviction. And nothing happens to an organized crime family, the Bidens that have sold out America. They have picture evidence of him having relations with underage women. They have him taking bribes. They have him, Joe Biden was actually on TV bragging how he was going to hold $1 billion and not give it to the Ukrainian government unless they fired a prosecutor.
Yep. That was investigating his son.
That's a crime. That's a crime. The defense attorney that said, we know your faces. I am Antifa. He is jury tampering. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. Nothing happened to Hillary Clinton. Nothing happened to Barack Obama. Nothing happened to, pencil neck Schiff. Nothing happened to Comey. Nothing happened to any of them. Nothing will happen. I don't think anything will happen to Fauci. And they committed major crimes against the people of the United States. So that's why I'm saying we are heading downhill quickly. Ladies and gentlemen, you might get tired of me saying this. I don't know. You might get tired of Doug and I getting on here every week and saying this, but I'll tell you, I was talking to Doug the other night just about certain people. And I said, my goal is even Hillary Clinton, even Barack Obama, I only want to see them there. And what I mean by that is standing before the throne of God, having been forgiven of their sins and having the Lamb, Christ Jesus, accept them into his kingdom, knowing that they've been forgiven. We always have to remember Paul the Apostle was a Christian murderer. He'd murdered thousands of Christians, had thousands imprisoned, and yet he came to repentance. So, that's my goal in all of it is to see Christ have the preeminence. But right now we have a spirit of lawlessness that's taken over our country. We see the Antichrist spirit just running rampant. And this thing is going to swirl down because God has given us over to this depravity. And I just can't tell you, like I said, you might get tired of hearing us say it, but you better get ready. Spiritually, you better surround yourself with good people. What I mean spiritually, is just get your heart right with the Lord Jesus Christ. And then, man, if they're trying to take your food away from you, you better put food away. Doug, I want to mention something real quick. People have said, I want to get meat that does not have the mRNA vaccine in it. We just started carrying a line of food called Whole Cow. You can go to wholecow.com. We have it on our website, Whole Cow, and they guarantee that none of their meat has been vaccinated. So if you want unvaccinated meat guaranteed, go to Ready Made Resources and look up Whole Cow. If you go to the food over there, Doug, and just click into the search engine, click that right there, the emergency food, where it says emergency food, right there, and then go to the search engine, or you can just click that and you'll see it right there. That Whole Cow, non-vaccinated meats. So if you want non-vaccinated meat, they're the only people I know that guarantee you that you will not get vaccinated meat. And so, if you really want it, there it is. The marketplace has responded to this hue and cry that we don't want to be, if we didn't take the vaccine, we don't want to be eating the vaccine. So it's just available. And that's their mission statement right above it of what they're doing. They're good folks over there. And they're trying to fill a need for people who do not want, that did not take the vaccine, that they don't want them eating the vaccine. So that's available. But if they're trying to take your food away from you, they're trying to take your water away from you, they're trying to take your firearms away from you, you better pay attention to that and stockpile right now, because the Biden administration is doing everything they can to take all those away from you. They're doing everything they can to take your energy away from you. 15-minute cities are a prime example of that. No cars. You don't need a car. You can't use carbon anymore. Even gardening now is considered a climate crime because, you have to have fertilizer to garden. So when private citizens want to garden and grow their own food to make sure it's not been poisoned like we do, I don't use any chemical fertilizers or any chemical poisons on the food that we grow. That, I'm going to be a climate criminal soon because, growing food takes carbon. Well, everything takes carbon. And so you better pay attention to what they're saying. Dave Hodges asked me today what I thought about all those claims. They want to reduce population, yada, 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 yada. And he goes, well, what do you think? I said, Dave, it doesn't matter what I think. You have their own words. Somebody could have read Mein Kampf and asked me, what do you think about Adolf Hitler, what he thinks about the Jews? It doesn't matter what I think. He tells you in there what he thinks. You don't have to listen to me tell you what he thinks. Just read the book, Mein Kampf. He tells you, he hates Jews. He wants to kill them all.
Saul Alinsky, the same thing. Rules for radicals.
Yeah. So, yeah, when you see these people saying, we want to reduce population by billions, we want to starve people, that's what they're doing. They're doing it right now. I mean, if you don't have fertilizer, if you don't have the components to make fertilizer, you're going to starve people. The land, instead of making, say, 1,000 bushels per acre, only makes 500 bushels per acre or 300. People are going to starve. That's the simple facts of it. And that's what they're doing. So, when we herald out these warnings over and over again, using the modern news to bring to light what's going on, I just admonish my brothers and sisters, look at it, take it seriously. This isn't Doug and Dave's, Bob and Dave saying this is coming out of their own mouths. They want to do this. They want to kill you because the ultimate carbon they want to eliminate is you.
Yep.
That's the ultimate carbon they want to eliminate. And I just encourage you to take it seriously.
Well, we're at an hour right now. Let's come back next week and we'll talk about the whole alien story because it'll still be fresh.
Yeah.
For anyone's view on this biblically, I guess let's give 5 minutes to it, Bob.
Okay. Well, in all things, it's, the first knowledge, the first temptation that Satan offered mankind was esoteric knowledge. If you do this, God's hiding stuff from you. And if you do this, you'll be wise. So they were allured with esoteric knowledge. And I think there's a major allurement in the church today, not only in that thing, we're going to learn the mysteries of the seven thunders. We're going to learn this mystery. We're going to learn that mystery. And it tantalizes us. It's like a form of, I don't want to use the word pornography, but it is. It's like,
it's a dopamine effect.
Porn. Yeah, it is a dopamine effect. And so when you have people that's all they talk about, or the prosperity gospel, you have the people in the prosperity gospel or the climate gospel or any of these other gospels that they talk about, without Christ being the preeminence, I believe that we do have, spiritual activity going on right now, manifest themselves as different things, different, whatever it is, demons, angels, whatever's doing it. Christ has to have the preeminence. If it just becomes, they're on ghost stories, then Christ doesn't have the preeminence in that. If I'm bringing to light what demonic activity via aliens or, whatever is going on, the end of that story has to be Jesus talked about this as it was in the days of Noah. Jesus talked about the rich. Jesus talked about climate change. He's going to be the greatest perpetrator of climate change ever because he's going to cause the heavens and the earth to burn up. That'll be some global warming for sure. So, we always have to keep Christ as preeminent in all of it. And that's the big takeaway I would say to people. Yes. I mean, I love esoteric knowledge. I mean, it is. I'm just a curious guy by nature. And when I hear a mystery, I want to solve it. But I always have to guard my heart that in it, Christ has to be glorified. Christ has to be magnified. And if that's not the case, if the subject becomes that which I dwell on without dwelling on the Lord Jesus Christ, then I've gone askew. I'm not walking in the path that I need to be walking in anymore. So I just encourage people with that. You know, in this day, in this day and age, there's going to be so many issues that can draw your attention away. You know, signs and wonders. People are going to be enamored by signs and wonders. The Bible says they will be. The Antichrist will be doing them. And, you know, instead of keeping their eyes on Jesus, they're going to have their eyes on signs and wonders. And there's a great big following today of people in the church promising signs and wonders. And they get caught off into that venue. And then Christ always takes the back seat.
Well, you know, you talked about, you know, some of the things that the church right now is, you know, they're getting further away from the cross and they're going further back into Old Testament, trying to reveal these old things. And Titus chapter 1, verse 14 says, not devoting themselves to not be devoting yourselves to Jewish myths. You know, when you start searching after these things, you get your works end up becoming more of trying to uncover things that they're already in the Bible for a reason. You can go back and read them, and there's nothing wrong with reading them. But when you devote your life and you become Alice stumbling down the rabbit hole, and you get further and further away from the cross, what are you doing to your life and to your loved ones? Are you spreading the knowledge of flat Earth? Are you spreading the knowledge of the mud flood? Are you spreading the knowledge that Big Mike is really Big Mike and it's not Michelle? Are you spreading the knowledge of everything that is not to be glorifying God and going back into the ancient mysteries and rites and the stuff that capsulated people? That's how you got the Masons. That's how you got all these other cults.
I've read a lot of Jewish history, and the reason Paul talks about Jewish myths is because he's talking to a Jewish crowd. But there's Hindu myths, there's all these other myths of Chinese myths. So it's not a picking on the Jews thing. It's just that's the culture which he was addressing. But you know, I've read it. I mean, you know, where it says the giants here and afterwards. Well, there's a Jewish myth that says one of the giants hung on to the ark during the whole flood, and Noah would feed him, you know, feel sorry for him, and throw food out the window to him. I mean, that's a Jewish myth. It's there. It's real. And, you know, if I got, oh, that giant, you know, he had some brothers and sisters, and, you know, he did this and he did that. And, you know, this is how that happened. And I go down that rabbit hole. Where's Jesus in that? Where's Jesus? It might be tantalizing. It might be like, whoa, that's cool stuff. But brother, that's really neat stuff. You know, but where's Jesus in it? Because the Bible makes it very clear that Christ has to have the preeminence in all things. So in your life, Christ has to have the preeminence in all things. And if you get drugged down one of these rabbit holes, I know there's thousands and thousands of Christians, millions of them in this country. Just look at Joel Osteen's thing that have been drugged down the thing of prosperity. Does God want his people to prosper? Yes, but more than anything, he wants us to prosper spiritually. He doesn't want us to necessarily to prosper financially. When you have a super abundance, it's easy to forget the Lord. And so these people, you know, getting drug off into this financial prosperity. There's people being drug off into flat Earth. There's people being drug off into the Book of Enoch. You know, I know people that treat the Book of Enoch as though it were canon. It's not canon.
Yep.
It's not. And if you know, it's good history, read it, and it might help put things in perspective, but it's not canon.
It's not salvation.
No, Christ has to have the preeminence. And that's what the Gospels do. That's what the epistles do. Brings Christ into the preeminence, and it encourages us to make him Lord of everything. So that when I'm talking, I might talk about aliens. I might talk about demonic incursion. But in the end, I'm going to refer it back as it was in the days of Noah. So we have to be careful of this, because these spirits, in fact, in Revelation, what is it, 9? I wrote it down, 9:14, that there are 4 spirits that are under the Euphrates River. When they're let loose, yeah, they're going to really, I mean, Chuck Missler calls them extremely malignant spirits, which I love that word to describe them. I think it's very accurate. You know, malignant spirits that they're going to kill, they'll be responsible for 1/3 of humanity dying. Now, I could get caught up on that tangent. What were their names? What did they do before the fall? You know, you could get off on that tangent, and there's stuff out there that talks about what they did, what were their names were, why they did this, why they were locked up. And if that becomes your field of study, other than, keeping your eyes focused on Jesus, brother, sister, you're in sin. That's as close as best I can say it.
Yep.
Christ has to have the preeminence. When you're talking, Christ has to be the one that's glorified. And if you're talking about aliens or prosperity or whatever, flat earth, Christ has to be the one who is glorified in it.
And the other part, and I'll say this, and I'll probably burn a bridge with half the crowd, is on the social media posts. If most of your social media posts is trying to compare Trump to Jesus, or as Trump is like the savior of America, man, you're in sin. That's idol. You're creating
it's
idols.
Idolatry. Idolatry.
Well, look at how many idols we have right now that we've created, and we keep slipping away from the cross. Paul, when he was talking to the Philippians, what he was talking to them was about his imprisonment, saying, I was imprisoned for Christ, gladly imprisoned for Christ. How many of you are going to be gladly imprisoned for Christ, gladly martyred? But instead, you have prosperity and you have all the cool history stuff, and people are looking for Apophis in 2025. And I don't care about any of these things. I don't care. I care about my salvation, my children's salvation, staying right on the path with God, and trying to lead men and women to that path. And other than that, we're supposed to go out and make disciples. We're supposed to go out and make disciples for Christ, not disciples for alien disclosure, not disciples for giants, not disciples for this, not disciples for that, though they all have a part to play, but it's disciples for Christ.
That's right. If the end of your message is not bringing that topic, whatever your topic is, into focus of how Jesus gets glory out of it, or how Jesus warns about it, then you're off topic. As a Christian, you're off topic. It always has to go back to Christ having the preeminence. If you read the Westminster Confession of Faith, the first question in the Westminster Confession of Faith is, what is the duty of man? The duty of man is to bring God glory and to enjoy his presence forever. That's our first and foremost duty, is to bring God glory. You can talk about aliens all day long, and you can draw a crowd, and you get people enamored and buy your books and whatever. You can talk about flat earth and why, it is Enoch proved the flat earth. You can talk about how God wants you to be prosperous and have mega bucks in the bank and have private jets. But if you can't tie that back into the scripture, then you are in sin. That's as clear as, and you're not, you've gone off on the path, a different path. And if you don't repent of that, eventually your candlestick will go out. It'll burn. You'll lose your way.
Yeah. And Bob, you know that God has more or less called me to be an evangelist now. So I find myself no different than Isaiah and Jeremiah, weeping and crying for the people to turn away from their wicked ways. But one of the things of encouragement is that even when God was chastising the children of Israel, his hand was always stretched out still. His hand was always stretched out still. He was still always saying, look, it doesn't have to be this way. Come to me. Stop committing evil in my sight, and I will bless you. I'll heal your land. I'll heal your family. I'll give back the things that the locust and the cankerworm and the caterpillar took away. I am the Redeemer. But so many times I don't hear that preached anymore. And even with the preachers, it doesn't have to be the preachers alone. You, fellow Christians, should be preaching it.
The Bible tells us the preacher's job is to train the saints to be the evangelist. I'm going to bring them to church so he can hear the message of salvation. What is wrong with you? Well, how come you can't do it? The Bible makes it clear. The fivefold ministry is to train and equip the saints for the function of ministry. God has called you to be an evangelist. Did you go through preacher school? No. But he's called you to be an evangelist. He's called me to preach the gospel. He's called everyone to preach the gospel. And, I employ and use all sorts of things. I employ and use science. But science in and of itself, even though science does, I think, prove the Bible 100%, disproves evolution 100%. If I just keep it on science, it doesn't bring Christ into preeminence where people know that is the end. That is the one I will stand before on the judgment day. That is the one who condemned me. Jesus can look at me and say, yeah, you could explain E equals MC squared and how it applied to the evolution couldn't happen, but still depart from me. That's what you'll hear. But if you've made Christ a preeminence in your life and you've made him the object of your obedience, you will hear those words, well done, thou good and faithful servant. And that is the goal of our salvation, or the goal of our faith is the salvation of our souls. So you asked me about that. I know I went on a long, explanation, but that boils it all down. Alien, I think the Antichrist will employ alien stuff, but that brings it back to Jesus Christ, because we don't want to be deceived. And Jesus said, be not deceived. So all that alien stuff that we see coming out, I believe, is a grand deception. I tie it back to Christ. Prosperity. Go ahead.
And this, instead of waiting next week, let's just get this out there. Look, some of the worst, most heinous comments I've seen on the interview that Tim and I did come from the Christian community. People who are either having a very hard time dealing with this subject, they outright deny it, or they claim all these things that most of the time you really cannot prove matter of factly. Now, there's a crowd of people out there that I'm friends with, a lot of them, that say that aliens are demons, or demons are masquerading as aliens. If that's your prerogative, that's fine. I don't care. Prove it. And I don't care if you prove it to me. You don't have to. Whatever you believe is what you believe, man. I mean, we're talking about stuff that is beyond salvation right now. So, this is extra biblical at this point. But do you not think that I'll give you my conclusion on why I think the whole gray alien thing may have a little bit of sand to weight it down. When the flood happened, the Watchers allowed all their children to die.
Yes.
They allowed them all to die. Enoch
God
says,
condemned them to die. Yes.
Yep. Enoch says they wept and they this and that, but there was a second incursion. Where did they come from? So could it have been possible that this is where I think the whole alien gray thing. Now, look, Doug's not a scientist. I'm not a biblical scholar. This is Doug's opinion, so don't beat me up on it. I'm trying to just make sense of this, like Bob, like you are, and like so many other people are. But all these other creatures that we've heard of mythologically have always had a very distinct human look to them. Even if they were half animal, they had a distinct human look to them. But isn't there something truly alien about the look of the gray aliens? The big bulbous heads, the big eyes, the weird little bodies, or the big tall bodies. I think there could have been a possibility, if this is even relevant, if this even happened, that the Watchers developed a specific organism that had super intelligence, that had a ability to have a psychic capability to it. And if you don't believe in the whole psychic thing, then definitely don't do the research I have into the CIA, because they definitely believe it. So do the Russians and the Chinese.
Absolutely.
But if they developed this weird organism and they said, for whatever reason, this thing is what we hold dear for capturing the eye of humanity, to try and deceive people away from God. The whole goal of the Watchers is to destroy everything God made, to include us and our love and faith in him. So let me create something that is so out there that it can communicate through you through telekinesis. And we're going to take that organism, we're going to go put it on this other planet. Okay, there once was a planet supposedly named Rahab that is now just a big asteroid belt in between Saturn and Mars, right? So you have that problem. What happened there? Supposedly that was one of Satan's thrones, Satan's kingdoms, and God smote it and destroyed it. So if that is a possibility, that Satan was off-world, why is it not a possibility for the fallen to then, as Tim calls it, the bad guys, to then take their prodigy that was they considered to be this This weird little thing is our ticket to fooling the people and then whisking it away to another planet, another galaxy, another dimension, whatever you guys want to call it. I don't care. I think another planet. And then because it's an organism, it has to have air, meat, because it's created here on Earth. So it has Earth needs, right? It needs oxygen, most likely. It needs water, most likely. Its body's probably most likely made of water. If they did mate with a woman, then it's most likely as close genetically as you can get to being human. So it's going to have human qualities and human-like problems. So it needs to be on a planet somewhere that can sustain it. And if it can't be on a planet, then wouldn't they make a spaceship and float it around in the space to save it? You know, we're throwing out Christian science fiction now, so let's go there. This is what I'm saying. Do not underestimate Satan. Do not underestimate the fallen angels and what they could do. Bob, you said they had.
Let me interrupt.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah. There's an image that the Antichrist builds. Okay. Now he builds it. Now, is it corporeal life, or is it mechanical life, or I don't know. It would be conjecture. It could be he might make it corporeal life. He might make it mechanical life. But sooner or later, he gets to the point where he gives life unto the beast. The beast can that image can speak. That image comes alive. So he has a lot of potential within what God allows him to do. All you have to do is read that what in Revelation 13, that this image somehow starts speaking. And if you don't worship that image, which it tells you everybody on the planet, almost everybody, falls right in line with it. So the ability of that type of technology or spiritual activity, whatever you want to call it, to deceive humanity is monstrous. It's huge. Those who know the word of God and see it happen, they're going to go, nah. I've read that in the Bible. No, I'm not going to worship that thing. That's a demonic deception.
Yes.
So whatever it is, if it takes the preeminence off Jesus, if it takes the sonship off Jesus, if it takes the lordship off Jesus, if it takes away his ability to redeem mankind off Jesus, if it tries to alter the human genome, Noah was perfect in his genome. His genealogy.
Satanic.
Yeah,
it's absolutely satanic.
It doesn't matter if they have 2 eyes, 4 eyes, 6 eyes, 3 legs. You know, it doesn't matter. It is satanic. But whatever that image is, which it like I said, it could be mechanical or corporeal, it will come to life, or come the appearance of coming to life, and it'll speak, and you will be required to worship it. At that point,
Daniel, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, at that point, it doesn't matter what it is. Your life depends on whether you'll worship or not. Just the same way Nebuchadnezzar required you to worship his statue, his image. If you didn't do it, you were put to death. And so I wouldn't get so much hung up in the detail of it. Anything, this is my general rule today, and this is what I think keeps me biblically sound. Anything that takes the preeminence away from Jesus, it takes my focus off Jesus, is not good for me. Now, that doesn't mean I can't look into those subjects, because, again, Christ warned us about the end time deception would be great. And I see the satanic powers that be pushing aliens, pushing this, pushing that.
Yep.
Pushing transhumanism. Let's alter man's gene. This is, I think that ended bad one time. Let's change their genes around. It did end bad. So whenever I see things like that, some of the minutia of the detail of who, what, when, where, why of it doesn't matter as much as that is trying to take the preeminence away from Jesus Christ. That would never, ever, ever fly theologically. Well, if it's doing that, get away from it.
And here's another thing: when people get wrapped up in saying that aliens are demons, demons are the disembodied spirits of dead giants. They are trapped here on this earth. They are bound to the earth. They can't leave the earth. So what we're talking about is not a demonic thing. We're talking about a satanic thing. This is his plan. It's not the demon's plans. It's Satan's plans. The demons are the things that he plays with. The demons are the things that he sends to torment you. Satan's plan is to completely fool the eyes of the world. Is it not in Daniel that it says that the Antichrist will have the appearance like a man? Like a man.
Well, he will have appearance like a man. He will, just as Satan entered Judas. Judas still had the appearance of a man. Satan was inside of him. But it didn't say a demon entered him. It didn't say a fallen angel. It says Satan entered his into his body. So that's totally possible. That it is, and I think that is the case. Satan will enter it. We have to keep in mind. If I had an IQ of 200, I would be among the 0.0001% of people on the earth. Very, very few people have been born with an IQ of 200 or above. And yet angels, we don't know, but I would conjecture they have IQs of thousands or tens of thousands. They're so far intellectually above us that it would stagger us. So now I don't think Satan can create anything, but that doesn't stop him from taking God's creation and making something, taking DNA of an animal, taking DNA of a human, taking whatever,
Right.
and constructing another being.
Right.
That's totally within the realm of possibility. That, that movie Splice.
And they had
mankind.
They had to
mankind
create.
does it.
Yeah, they had to create through mating.
Yeah.
So
mankind does this. We take different chemicals and elements of the earth, which are relatively safe, and we make horrible things out of them.
Yep.
Horrible toxins. So, they were never meant to be used for a Sera nerve gas or a binary nerve agent. But we take two elements that are relatively safe, mix them together, which becomes then a horrible, horrible thing for humanity. Can Satan do that? Oh, I bet he can. He can take two things that are relatively benign. There's nothing wrong with lion DNA. There's nothing wrong with human DNA. But if you mix them together and you come up with a new separate being,
get the lion men of Moab.
It's a horrible thing at that point. And Satan can definitely have that ability. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. What we're trying to say is like, don't put Satan in a box. This guy has been around from the beginning, fooling mankind from the beginning, and he's not going to stop until he's stopped. So, Christians, they live in this occasionally occasionally Christians live in this wide variety of beliefs where in one part they believe everything, and then you get closer to New Ageism than you do becoming a Christian. And then the other part, they're so narrow-minded that I know men who are called themselves Christians. They didn't believe in the Holy Spirit. They didn't believe in the gifts of prophecy or fivefold ministry anymore, the gifts of healing. They didn't believe that demons were real. And even to the point I've heard that they don't believe that hell is real.
Yeah, well, only 37, and this is according to statistics. I quite frankly don't think it's this high. Only 37% of pastors in America have a biblical worldview. Only 3% of people professing Christianity have a biblical worldview. You talk about a target, an area that's rich for deception. If you don't have that biblical worldview, man, you are ripe. You're a low-hanging fruit for the devil.
Yep.
And that's what the majority of America is today. That's what a majority of America's pastors are today. They're low-hanging fruit for Satan. And so this is why we're going to see this grand deception. And, this is where you have to have strength. This is where you have to have the power of the Holy Spirit in your life, because when your pastor and all your friends and all that, just like with a vaccine, your pastor's saying, get the vax. All your friends are saying, get the vax, doing all these things. The pressure's on you to say, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And when you have, your pastor, your friends, all the news media, all the political powers saying, bow down and worship, that pressure is going to be intense. And for you to stand there, and we saw it, how many people took the vaccine that didn't want to take it, but did it for one reason or another. They were kowtowed into doing it. This is good. When we see this image come to life and satanic deception really come out and blossom, I just say, Doug, very few people could be able to stand against it.
Well, my dad took 3 different vaccines. He had the 2 vaccines, then a booster, which I think is what killed him. And he did that because he was scared, because the TV and the politicians scared him. Me and him would have many conversations. Son, are you going to get the vaccine? No, I don't get vaccines.
No.
I've already gotten sick. I believe in my immune system that my God gave me. And people who are not solid on their faith, for one thing, and people who are being scared can be easily manipulated. What happens whenever the aliens get here, and the only way to keep yourself safe away from the aliens is to get this chip put into your head so they can't read your mind? Oh, well, I
Yeah.
mean,
Well,
is
yeah,
that
the only way to overcome it is to know the Lamb, to
that's
walk
right?
with the Lamb, the fellowship with the Lamb. That's the only way you'll do it. They overcame by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony, and they loved not their
Their
life
life
unto
unto
death.
death. Amen.
That's the only way you're going to do this, because that deception, and it doesn't matter, if Doug and I don't agree specifically which alien did it and what aliens really were. The thing is that you have to watch for is that it will steal the preeminence away from Jesus. Jesus will no longer be on the throne. There'll be something else on the throne of your life. You'll be chasing aliens, prosperity, flat earth, whatever it is. Once that happens, you've been defeated. And you will be amongst the crowd when that image starts to talk, and you'll be going, oh my gosh, that's a miracle. God does miracles. Therefore, I need to worship this thing.
Yep. Don't think that the aliens won't come with signs and lying wonders.
They will. They absolutely will.
Alberino and I had talked about this. This is all part of the satanic plan. The entire alien thing is a satanically influenced plan at the heart of it and at the end of it. Because him, like Bob, and many others, we do firmly believe the Antichrist, or at least one of them, because there's multiple Antichrists. At least one of them will come and they'll say, "Hey, oh, hey, this guy, we made him along with Jesus, and this is the carbon copy of Christ."
Imagine this scenario. We actually got live DNA off the Shroud of Turin, and we've recreated Jesus.
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that before.
Yeah. Imagine. And the technology's there. 20, 30 years ago, you'd have thought, oh my gosh, guy smoking dope. Not anymore. You don't think that way.
Down here in Texas, 2 years ago, they found a female Tyrannosaurus Rex with an intact egg inside of it, and they were able to draw the DNA from the egg, and they said, we're going to recreate. And I'm like, the whole time, like, do you people not watch these movies that I watch?
Jurassic Park? Didn't you watch?
Don't do it.
Yeah, but they can't resist.
Yeah, well,
again, it borders that esoteric knowledge thing. I'm going to show you mysteries and all kinds of neat things and tricks and signs, and we fall for that. But so again, will aliens and that type of thing play a huge part in the end time? I think so. Will distraction of materialism, prosperity gospel, have a huge thing of impact in the end time? Absolutely. Well, esoteric knowledge, all kinds of tantalizing, things, because as technology is blossoming, we're going to have access to things that we just couldn't even dream of. We couldn't even dream of where this thing is going to give us godlike abilities. Is that going to draw people away? Absolutely.
Absolutely. The ability to heal you of any ailment, to make you live longer, to make you taller. Yeah. To make us all, look prettier and smarter and all this. Of course, people will be instantly drawn to it because their flesh is weak.
Yes. But only those who know their God will do exploits. This is why this is my passion. Ready-made resources is my source of income. I have a passion for doing it. I have a passion for getting people ready, prepared. I'm always looking for new products. I'm always doing that. But at the end of the day, there'll be people in hell that had 2 or 3 pair of night vision, that had thermal units, that had food, that had all the water filters, and they're going to be in hell. That doesn't save you being prepared. My passion is to get people right with the Lord Jesus Christ, so that, you will stand before the Son of Man one day and you will hear those words, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant." And I don't want to see, if you've ever read Pilgrim's Progress, Christian was the name of the main character. He got distracted off side roads that went off the highway to the celestial city. All these side roads, the side road of earthly cares, whatever. And that's my goal as to be faithful to the gospel, is to see that you don't get off those side roads that are distraction, where you get encumbered by things that will not benefit you at all and will deceive you in the end.
That's right.
Stay on the true and that normal path. Keep Christ the center focus of your life. And then with all these things that you hear, good, they're good things, but keep them in focus of how it will play into the days in which we live, how it will either deceive or build up, how it will condemn or edify. And if that's not, like I said, if that's not the purpose of it, I brother, sister, you're going the wrong way. I can't say it any clearer than that.
And for anyone who is not a Christian, the time is not too late. Your woes and burdens that you're carrying around can be lifted from you. You can put them right at the foot of the cross, accept Christ into your heart, and you can know how to drink from the real living waters, real healing. Drugs,
you'll never thirst again.
Yeah, drugs don't heal you.
Drink from that, you'll never thirst again.
Yeah, the drugs don't heal you, man. The porn doesn't heal you. The violence doesn't heal you. The alcohol, the tobacco. This world is only meant to destroy us. You were born into it. And the only way out of it is through the Son. I may not be the best. I may not be the best guy at trying to tell you how to come to Christ, but I came to Christ, and I was a reprobate, just like many others. And if I'm accepted into the kingdom, you can be accepted. I firmly believe, though I don't like to admit it, that right before Adolf Hitler died, if he accepted Christ into his heart and repented of his sins, Bob, I mean, it may surprise some people.
Well, but St. Paul was Adolf Hitler. St. Paul, when he was Saul of Tarsus, murdered thousands and thousands of Christians
and bragged about it.
Prison,
thought he was doing God's work.
Yeah, thought he was doing God's work. Adolf Hitler thought he was doing God's work by eliminating the Jews. But he came to faith. Christ called him. And when he was forgiven, he went on to become, one of the greatest Christians who ever lived. So there is no soul that is unredeemable. In that book, Pilgrim's Progress, Christian, he starts his journey with his huge, I don't want to call it a backpack because it would have been a huge backpack filled with all this earthly care and stuff like that. And it's a burden. And he's like, oh, I'm weighed down, all this stuff. Because he's got this, imagine this huge backpack on, just, 5 feet by 6 feet filled with junk. And, he thinks he has to carry that. But as he comes to Christ and the Lord delivers him, that backpack falls off and he's free. He's free from that burden of sin that he carried, the burden of worry, concern he carried. And, anybody listening, no matter what your burden is, you can have that burden removed from you. And Christ will set you free that you can, run with patience. You can't run with a big 500-pound backpack on your back. You can't run with that. But once that backpack's removed, you can run the race with patience.
And you know what? I'll say this too. Discipline in your prayer life for Christians who are slipping, backsliding, you need to stop it. You stop all that stuff that's making you backsliding. And that goes for me, that goes for Bob, it goes for everybody, because nobody here is perfect. There is not a perfect Christian sitting around here trying to tell you how to do things. That's why iron sharpening iron, as Bob and I do quite a bit, you should be doing with your friends, your family, your church. And I will say this, as the times are getting worse, scarier things are going to come. People are going to be shaken, and people are going to come to you, dear listener. They're going to come to you saying, what do I do? You're a Christian. How do I pray? How do I accept Christ? Be ready for that day. that God sends people to be saved, to be welcomed into the kingdom, that will be one of the greatest things that you can ever do in your life. It's not about the money you amass. It's not about how many fights you win. It's not about any of that. It's about how many people did you bring with you to the kingdom, you know?
R.C. Sproul, the great theologian R.C. Sproul, said, that what is a preacher? It's one sinner telling another sinner where to find bread.
Right.
That's all it is. I'm just one sinner telling you where you can find bread. Christ is the bread of life. Christ is the living water. And if you go to him, he will not turn you away. He said, come unto me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me. He's not like that. If he can save John Newton, the horrible slave trader, if he can save, Paul the apostle, if he can save the most wretched person there is, which throughout history, he saved a lot of wretches, he can save you. He can deliver you, and that's the thing. That's why I'm saying I pay attention to all this alien stuff. I pay attention to, all these things that are going on, with the expressed understanding that I want to use it to bring glory to Jesus Christ and to enlighten people to the truth.
Amen.
That as we approach these end times, grand and great deception are going to be out there. Don't be distracted by these things, brother, sister. Don't be distracted by it. Keep your focus on Jesus Christ. Yes, these things are important, but Christ has preeminence. Preeminence is more important than important. It's everything. Christ is everything. Jesus is everything.
Keep God focused on your mind, and you shall
Yes.
be well. Bob, can you give out your number and let people know how they can get any night vision from you? Got any special sales going on today?
Well, I'll tell you something. Check around with all my competitors. Night vision tubes are drying up. They're hard to get right now. The suppliers don't have them. We still have units in stock, but don't believe me, go look. But yeah, if they, again, in the natural realm, I think night vision is one of the greatest force multipliers you can buy. Thermal is one of the greatest force multipliers you can buy. People can call me and I'll talk through what they need. But 800-627-3809, or just go onto my website, PVS, put in search in PVS 14. It'll come up there, but the night vision will be there, ready-made resources. That'll be there. But we also have food, water. I told you about that whole cow, non-vaccinated meat we just started carrying. Solar energy. We have a lot of books and videos, homesteading equipment. If you ever come to our store, you'll see right out front, Doug, you've seen it. I got that huge hand pump, water pump, so I can pump water out of the ground without electricity.
Yep.
Our building runs on solar energy. It always freaks people out. The liberals, you sell survive. No, I'm a green energy business. I have carbon-free products. I tell them that just to trigger them.
And
we do.
In October 6th, 7th, and 8th, we're going to be putting on the third active shooter training. This one is not going to be a basics course. This is going to be more of an intermediate to an advanced course. We're going to do a lot of shooting, no live fire. This is all going to be all done by airsoft. The targets are going to be you. So you're going to have a lot of you guys are going to have a lot of fun. We got a lot of people that I met at Jamie Walden's conference, the Warrior Summit conference, who are talking about coming. So hopefully we can get a bunch of you turned out. Look, guys, I don't do this to make money. I have another instructor that I bring in, Steve Reyes. He will teach all the tactical advanced medical stuff, which you can't have gun knowledge without the medical knowledge. And then we also go through SEER training, and we teach you how to. Currently, the thing that we're working on is, putting you in a checkpoint and questioning you and trying to see how you would respond to it, and then give you tips of how to actually respond to things and how to view things and read people. This is a combination of, decades worth of knowledge. So it's an awesome course. It's $850, $50 that goes straight to Bob for the utilities for there. And we do, it's half fellowship, half training. When we're not training, we're fellowshipping. Everyone had a great time, so much that half the class followed me to go to the conference at the Warrior Summit conference. And then a good bit of them are coming right back, Bob, for this third course.
Justin said that, and so several other people said, I feel like I've been at a Christian retreat. Joshua, when he came back from Jamie's place, said, the greatest thing of that whole thing was I've never had Christian fellowship that way. There was a lot of older guys. He was the youngest guy there. And for him to be, to see these older men, not old men, but older men, following Jesus, real men, following Jesus, it really benefited him and blessed him. And so I hope he blessed some of the older guys.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean,
that's the way it is.
It was awesome because in these smaller venues, we can fellowship in a way that you can't at some of these big mega Christian conferences that happen where you pay thousands of dollars to bump into a few people and say hi to a few people. At what we're doing for the active shooter stuff at Bob's place and some of the other places we'll be going to, it's very intimate. We were praying for each other. We were talking about some really serious, hardcore matters. And I benefited greatly from it. I know many people benefited greatly from it. And I'm at least being able to teach you what I know that could help protect you, protect your family. Look, this is okay for women to come to. It's okay for men to come to. Obviously, men, get off your butt and come to training. If you have a teenager and you want them to learn, bring them out here. Learning these little tricks and traits, they can help you survive, not the incoming tribulation, but the home invasion that may happen tomorrow. That's really where we're trying to prepare you, as an all-around level of preparedness. Bob, you got any last words?
No, just like I said, my last words are, we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of his testimony. We don't overcome with, I'm smarter than you. We don't overcome with, I know more than you do. We don't overcome by, I know the mystery of the seven thunders. We don't overcome by any of those things. We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And we have to get to the point that we love not our lives unto death. That's where we're at. And when we do, people, we have no clue what that celestial city is going to be like. I just read the few little snippets in Revelation and what Paul describes, and I think, I want to be there. I want to be. God himself comes down to me and wipes the tears out of my eyes. Oh, what joy will flood my soul, at that time. And I just pray. I pray Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, that you will know that joy of having been forgiven of your sins and stand before the Son of Man and have him accept you into his kingdom. There is no soul so vile that God cannot reach down and redeem it. If you don't believe that, just read the story of John Newton, the horrible slave trader, rapist, who eventually became a Christian and wrote the song Amazing Grace. Just read that and you'll see that was a vile, wretched man, but he came to Christ and forgiven, and God used his life mightily. So that's what I'd finish with.
Well, for anyone out there who is, when these times get tough and your faith is shaken, I want you to remember Isaiah 41 verse 10. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you. So, amen. Guys, take care. 360 degrees of situational awareness at all times. Don't get caught up in all this other madness. Stay focused on God. Embrace Philadelphia. Embrace true brotherly love with each other while you got the time. The time's coming short. And other than that, guys, stay frosty. Bob, thanks for coming on with us.
Thank you, Doug. God bless.
God bless you, brother. Take care, guys.
Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum has said, "You will own nothing and you will love it." And that's represented by what's going on across the planet today, where the economy of the world is in free fall, and nowhere is it more in evidence than with our own President Biden deliberately trying to sabotage what we have. Access to food, other resources. So Americans are in a unique position, really for the first time in our history. We're going to have to provide for ourselves or subject ourselves to the whim of the government. Do you really trust a government to feed you that left 1,000 Americans behind enemy lines in Afghanistan? I don't think so. So where do you go? When you ask the question, who's the best prepper out there today? There's only one answer. Ready-Made Resources and Robert Griswold. I call him King Prepper, and that's how a lot of people think of him. You have everything there you'd want, from night vision to storable food, how to prepare cooking in emergency situations, books and videos on how to prepare alternative energy, communication, first aid that you wouldn't think of, natural antibiotics, you name it. Bob has it. Now, here's the good thing about Bob Griswold that no one else does but him. You don't have to buy anything to talk to him. If you're not sure where to start with your preparation, no obligation phone call directly to Bob. You can talk to him for free. Most people will charge you an arm and a leg for a half-hour conversation. That's not Bob Griswold. He cares about helping America get prepared. Go to readymaderesources.com, or you can call the number directly at 800-627-3809. Again, that contact information, readymaderesources.com, for the best prepping outfit in the country, or call Bob Griswold directly, 800-627-3809.